Hi everyone, my name is Simona and I am part of the Global Black Belt team of networking for EMEA. I'm based in London. Today I want to talk to you about networking and why it's so important. When you decide to deploy your workload, your services or application inside Azure Data Center, you need to understand how to connect from your on-premises network all the way to a data center. And so we have in Azure, we have 54 regions in 140 countries. So we cover all the globe in Azure Data Center. So we invest 700% the last couple of years in our global one. So we own the dark fiber and we proactively monitoring all the network. Why is so important? Because whenever you deploy an Azure workload inside Azure Data Center, your workload stay inside Azure one. It doesn't go over the internet. So when you design also your data center inside Azure, you need to be as close as possible to a data center, as close as possible to your own premises when you decided to have an hybrid connectivity because of the latency, and also because you want to stay in control of your workload. And so today I'd like to talk about what is a virtual network, so the basic of deploy an Azure workload inside the data center. So you start with a virtual network. So whenever you deploy something, you need to create a virtual network, which is a logical isolation of your data center inside Azure. And so when you deploy the virtual network, you give it a name, you give it an address space, and then you subnetting this address space. And what does that mean? You slice this address space, meaning that inside a virtual network, you can deploy any workload inside a subnet. And when I talk about the subnet is the one that is connecting to a virtual machine via network interfaces card. Why I talk about the network interfaces cards is because it's the heart of the virtual network. It's the one that you can give the private IP address, you can give a public IP address, or you can give a dynamic IP address in the IP config, which is connecting the subnet to the virtual network. So between subnet, whenever you deploy a virtual machine, between subnet, the subnet can talk to one another inside the same virtual machine. And the reason why it's possible is because whenever we deploy anything, we're using something called SDN, so software defined network. And whenever a packet flows to one subnet to another, it's like you don't need a layer 3 switch device. You need it in a normal networking deployment because of the SDN stack. The traffic flows between one subnet to another subnet. If you don't want to do that, if you wanted to stop that to happen, you will need to apply something called UDR and something called network virtual appliance, which it can be firewalling instead. But let's look how to connect it from cross-premises connection. So I talked to you about the virtual network and the subnet. So inside the subnet, you have to specify one specific subnet called gateway subnet. And this gateway subnet can be either ExpressRoute gateway or VPN gateway. Essentially, the difference between the ExpressRoute gateway and the VPN gateway is that the VPN gateway uses something called IPsec connectivity, which is an encrypted packet. The ExpressRoute gateway instead is a dedicated connectivity on-premise and is using something called BGP, Boardware Gateway Protocol. Essentially, is a layer 3 protocols, which is allow one IP address to another IP address with the same IS number to connect between one another and to exchange packets. Now, I wanted to talk you through about a little bit more in detail about ExpressRoute. How does that work? So we ask a customer to meet us halfway, and there's this word called peering location. The peering location is basically a place where inside we have racks and we have a Microsoft Edge route, and then there are service provider routes. And inside that route, we cross connect basically these two with layer 2 or layer 3. We cross connect. and then we connect to Azure data center. So a peering location, we have different peering location. In UK, for instance, we have one in London, and then we have one in NGD Newport, and you can choose between that connectivity. But one single express route is allow you to connect to all geopolitical region in EMEA. So that means that you can connect to Amsterdam, to Paris, only with one express route circuit. So the architecture of express route is, so you have the connectivity piece, then you have the cross connect inside the peering location, and then you have the express route, which is belong to a connectivity with layer 3 that belongs to Microsoft. And so the network topology is basically you have a routers from your own premises. You can extend your routing all the way to the peering location, which could be Interaction or Equinix. And then from Equinix cross connect with layer 2 device, and then all the way connection to Microsoft. So you pay for one circuit and we give you 2 circuits. So why is that? Because with the express route, we give you an SLA of 99.95%. And so again, we talk about BGP, and so when you connect to the express route, the requirements are BGP. You need to give an IP address, 2 IP address, /27 or /8, which is the biggest size that you need to provide. You need to give like a VLAN ID, because as the ISP provider using a VLAN ID to connect to layer 2 to the Microsoft Edge route, and then you need to give some, you start the BGP session with layer 3. And a little bit in details, you also give an IS number, which is an autonomous system number, which are important because it's the basic of a BGP, of exchanging BGP packets on layer 3. And so inside the express route circuits, you have different way of connecting. So you have private peerings and Microsoft peerings. So with the Microsoft peerings, you can connect with SaaS and PaaS. And what is that? So SaaS and PaaS are Microsoft public IP addresses. So, they are multi-tenants IP addresses. And so if you wanted to connect with towards those applications, you need to have Microsoft peering in place, which also with route filter. And route filters is regional and will allow you only to have BGP prefixes inside your your own network, instead of have floating your network with all the prefixes for SaaS and PaaS. With Microsoft peerings, you only choose to have regional prefixes, and that is really important, guys. And the second way of connecting is private peerings, which you can use RFC 1918, which is private IP addresses, and you connect only privately to that. And this is for express route. When we talk about for the routing domains, we have basically we support .1Q or QNQ with the VLAN ID, and then you provide again the 2 primary and secondary circuits with /27 and /8, the biggest size as mentioned earlier, and that's for express route. So again, you will have to choose. Perhaps when we talk about disaster recovery, it's actually good to mention that you will need to choose 2 different express route location. Even though we give you 2 circuits, the disaster recovery is made of different location of data centers. For instance, it will be a good practice for you to choose a location, for instance, in London and one in Amsterdam. And so, because if a data center in Amsterdam blow off, then you have the connectivity in London. And so you can use mechanism as weight, because BGP support is also the weight, and you can put the weights of the connection on the primary connection, for instance, where the traffic will completely forward towards the primary connection, or the secondary when the failover, when something will happen to the primary connection, it will go to the secondary connectivity. And that's something that you have to keep in mind, because it's important to keep your workload safe towards the disaster recovery. So the 3 way of deploy express route towards the partner, you can use either layer 2, so cloud exchange colocation, or you can use extend your MPLS network all the way to the peering location, and then you will connect directly to our Microsoft Edge route. The cost structure, it will be various, because obviously if you connect all the way to with your MPLS, you pay the service provider, and then you pay Microsoft bills, obviously, for what you consume. With the Express route, I like to mention that there are two ways of connecting in terms of price. You can choose between meter or unlimited. When you choose meter, you pay for the you pay for the port fees, and then for the bandwidth that you pick and choose. We go from 50 meg all the way to 10 gig. Actually, there is actually 100 gig with direct connect that it just came out from Ignite. If you want to know more, please come to this workshop and I will tell you all about it. Also, there is connectivity at the moment up to 10 gig and you will be able to have unlimited if you basically choose to pay a port fees, and then you don't pay for egress and ingress traffic. But if you choose meter, you pay for the egress traffic regional, and that's just one rule. Another point that I like to underline to you guys is also important to remember that when you connect with the Express route, you need to choose between also the port and the the workload where is located. You can always upgrade, but you cannot downgrade. So a basic rule is, like, I will recommend you to start low and then grow up, and start low and then grow it with your bandwidth. If you want to start with 50 meg and then you can just grow it, but I would not recommend to have a big 10 gig, for instance, and then go slow, and then go back, because otherwise you will have to tear the circuits apart and then start all over again from the Azure portal. And this is about Express route. With VPN gateway instead is, as I mentioned to you before, is IPsec connectivity. And IPsec connectivity is basically an encrypted protocol. You can have site-to-site VPN or point-to-site. Point-to-site is it can be route-based or policy-based, and that's depending on what you choose between one another. So the maximum throughput gateway for the VPN, it used to be 1.28 gig, but now after Ignite we get to 20 gigabit per second. So again, it's an announcement of a VPN gateway, and I encourage you to check some documentation about it, or I will I love to tell you more about it if you come to this workshop. Important things that I don't want to forget is the monitoring of Express route, monitoring of VPN gateway, and you guys have to be in control of your traffic. So I'll encourage you to use either Network Watcher, which it will will look at log metrics and throughput between one virtual machine to another, or Express route monitoring, NPM, which will allow you to connect. Will allow you to look at the connection between your data center and Azure. So far, I just talked about how you connect from your own premises to Azure data center, but there is also a way to connect it inside the data center. So that's called connectivity. So you have the possibility of connecting VNets, because I just said that there are logical isolation, so you need to connect them if you wanted to. So you can have an bespoke design, a mesh design. How you connect, the mechanism to connect it is either global VNet peerings or VNet peerings, or VNet to VNet, which can use IPsec or BGP. But I don't want to tell you too much about it, because I like you to join this workshop and come and see me, and I will tell you even more. Thank you. Bye.